Welcome back, everybody. It's great to be here on another Friday. So this week on Sportsbook Confidential, will my orange curse the orange? We're going to take an in-depth look at bankroll management, and I'm going to review last week's results, and I'm going to give you some more picks, and we'll see where this goes. Talks about the weekend in football. So let's get started. My name's John Sullivan, and I'm here to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. So as we move forward into this week's episode, I want to quickly review the takeaways from last episode as we go into today's sports betting lesson. So the three things that I wanted you to take away from last week's episode was go into sports betting with a profit motive. This number 2 is be informed and selective when making bets. And number 3 is manage your bankroll constantly. And we talked very briefly last week about bankroll and what bankroll is. It is the total amount of funds that you have allotted to your sports betting. And it doesn't mean how much you have right in your hand right now or how much you carry around with you. It means how much you have set aside to bet on sports. And so since we will be monitoring our bankroll daily, it's important to spend some time talking about how bankroll is utilized. And as we talk about this, there's several different ways for you to manage your bankroll. And the one I'm presenting here today is designed for a beginning sports bettor. I've used it to grow a starting bankroll more than once. It's worked really well for me, and I hope you find this helpful. It's really, managing your bankroll is really very key to being successful in doing this, and basically is going to end up allowing you to have more fun betting on sports. So let's get at it. I'm going to put up our first graphic here. We all know the bankroll is the sum of our available wagering capital. So how much do we use to make our wagers? And my basic bankroll management system, I don't like to use the word system, but you should split your bankroll into 30 equal wagers or 30 equal units, and each unit will equal one wager. So I've decided to use a starting bankroll of $750, and I'm going to carry this forward throughout our process together. So as I walked into our first episode, I'm saying that I brought $750 with me, and that is my starting bankroll. So my first wagers would be $750 divided by 30, which would be $25 per wager. So as we move on to as we went through our first week of wagers, we used $25 for each wager. And now that the first week is over, let's review our wagers and see how that affected our bankroll. So you can see I had 3 wagers last week that were $25 each. I had a wager on Toronto that lost, and that cost me $25. I had a net of minus 25. I had a wager on the Cincinnati Bengals that won, and that netted me a profit of $34. So after all was said and done, my bankroll increased $34. And then my last wager was the under on Monday night. It was the Raiders and the Rams, and that also won, and that made me a profit of $23. So if you do the math for adding all those together, after the end of week 1 and going into week 2, my bankroll was $750, and now, because I had a profitable week, my bankroll is $782. So we adjust each week going forward in our wagers, and we will just divide our new bankroll by 30 units, and we come up with $26. So as you can see, my wagers for this week will be $26, and as we review our wagers, as we come back next time, we'll, again, adjust our bankroll, and we'll do this every week. And the math should not be too complicated. But this process is very important. If you have a winning week, you'll be able to adjust your wagers upward. If you have a losing week, you'll be able to adjust your wagers downward. And this is going to keep you from overbetting and risking too much too soon. You don't want to chase to either achieve a goal over a short period of time or try to recoup losses. This is a process. This is something that you just execute every week. And you think about the bet you make, you calculate the size of the bet, but don't think about the size of the bet. Just say, my math tells me to wager this much. I'm just going to pick the best bet going forward, and then just tally up every week and see where you're at. And it will help you become more disciplined and also more selective and more informed. And like I said, it'll make your bankroll longer and stronger over the long run. So that's it for our lesson today. So why don't we move on to the upcoming week in football. It's actually a much more exciting week than last week was. And I'm going to start off by talking about college football this week. And college football is really not my forte. There's about 140-ish Division I teams in college football and the FBS level. And I feel like it's too many variables to follow. There's too many players, too many locations, too many line movements to follow. So I just concentrate on the games of interest, but I am going to give you one wager every week in college football going forward to give you my best, what I think is my best bet. And I'm going to record it in my one loss. I'm not going to say that I'm actually going to put money on these, but I give you the game that I definitely feel the strongest about. And take that for what it's worth. But we have very, very interesting games this week in the NCAA. And let's take a look at that right now. We're going to start with our good friends at Syracuse University, and they are hosting Florida State. And Syracuse has not beat Florida State since 1966. Florida State's been a national powerhouse for a long time. However, Dino Babers has the orange, humming offensively, we'll say. The defense is kind of optional, but this is his style. This is his strategy. We're going to talk coaching theory for a second, so bear with me here. Dino Babers is utilizing what I would call a efficient offense. He's trying to maximize. His theory is if we can maximize our offensive possessions, we're going to score more points than you, and thus we will win the game. And he did this at Bowling Green. This is why you see that the Orange will go for it on fourth down a lot, and they will avoid kicking unless they're kicking for points when possible. So what they tried to do was force tempo in the game and force their opponents to match tempo. What they hope to do is if the opposing coach tries to play traditional field position game, ground control, ball control game, they hope to get a lead and force that team to pass, to stop the clock a lot, which will result in more possessions per team per game, and thus more points for the Orange. So how the other coach reacts has a lot to do with what's going to happen in this game today. I do think a lot of points are going to be scored. The line on this game is Syracuse as a 3-point underdog, and I think whoever wins this game is going to win by more than 3. There's going to be lots of explosive plays. I don't really know how Florida State's going to play this, but I think 68 is a pretty low total, and they scored 76 total points in the Wagner game last week, and I certainly expect Florida State to do better than Wagner. So I really like the over in this game. Well, I just don't feel confident in placing a wager on this game. If you like a side, I think taking the point spread is the way to go. It's just I think somebody's going to win by a good 10 points here, just because there's going to be turnovers and explosive plays. So I wish the Syracuse Orange luck. I hope I don't curse them like the Buffalo Bills. Boy, what a creaming that was last week. So we'll see what happens with the Orange. On to the next game of interest for me is Ohio State at Texas Christian in Dallas, where the Cowboys play. Now, Ohio State does not have Urban Meyer. I do not think this is much of a big deal. But this game is not a cupcake for Ohio State. The Big 12 is a Power 5 conference. They like to play open style of football. TCU is a team that's more in the mold of that efficient offense. They are not going to grind games out. They're going to try to score points on you. So I feel like it's tough to measure what the spread should be here. I feel like Ohio State could win this by 14, but I also feel like TCU could make this a real game. The spread is 12.5 points. Don't really like that number. I feel like I just couldn't make a wager on either side here. The total is 59. I see this going over. Ohio State can score points when they want to. The issue is if they get up by 20 or 14, 17, 20 points, do they start to grind the clock? And that would affect the total. That's where the rub is in this game. But if I were going to wager on this game, I still like the over as well here. But I look forward to watching this game. Don't have a wager on it. This is a pass for me. But that's where that's what I feel strongest about in that game. And the game that I think is the best bet for this week is in the SEC. And that's LSU Tigers visiting Auburn. Both of these teams in the top 12. LSU's defense has been very impressive so far. I think they're going to keep this game close. And, with the hurricane coming in, you really don't know if it's going to affect Auburn, Alabama. But, there could be some inclement weather, wind, possible precipitation. That leads me to be really wary of the total here. I mean, the total's kind of low. I think both of these teams can score 21 points. And that'll put you right near the total of 44. I don't. There's too many variables right now for me to give you a pick today. But what I am going to play, and my college pick this week is going to be LSU plus 10.5. This is a lot of points for an SEC rival game, and these two teams will keep it close. And if this is a one possession game, if Auburn can grind that clock out in the fourth quarter, they're going to be happy to walk away, with a 6-point win or whatever. So this is the game that I think you should have your eye on. Watch that line to see if it moves up even more. Anything over 11 would be even better than 10.5. But obviously over 10, I think this is a play. If you're going to play college football this week, that is my pick. So, as we roll up with the college, let's move on to the week in pro football. And here I am back with week 2. I hit both of my NFL picks last week, and my CFL pick did not happen. But I love the CFL, and I can't give it up. So I will have one pick there for you today as well. But let's talk about the NFL games of note going into week 2. And let's start with the New York Jets, who are hosting Miami. The Jets had a surprising beatdown of the Detroit Lions last week, and they knocked me out of both of my survivor pools. I had Detroit as my survivor pick. So, like a lot of people, I'm sitting on the sidelines in survivor games. So, but it was the Jets' defense and special teams that really set the tempo in that game. It was Sam Darnold had that pick six early, but he also had starting field position on what they call the plus side of the field, on the opposite, closer to the goal line. And it's really, it's a lot easier to be an efficient offensive player when you're on that side of the field. So all phases of the game worked for the Jets. They were well prepared. And now they host divisional rival Miami, who's coming off a win of their own. I feel like this game is going to be very close, and it's lined like a typical division game in the NFL. Jets are 3-point favorites at home. 43.5. This could go, that's lined very appropriately. That could go either way. I feel like this game is a pass for me. It's one of those things that I feel like whichever way it goes, it's going to be close either way. This game could be a 3-point football game. I feel like Darnold is due for some more rookie mistakes. You can't, anoint him the Christ child of the Jets right now. He's going to have great moments and bad moments. Every rookie does. And I feel like Miami is really a sleeper team this year, but I don't know if they are ready. They're deep at running back. So if they can establish the run and get a good running game going, that's going to open up the passing game. Tannehill has never really impressed me much, but he's a good game manager, Alex Smith type. Going to be a close game. Should be fun to watch, but pass for me. And on to the New York Football Giants. They are playing the Sunday night game at Dallas, another classic divisional rivalry. Again, it's lined exactly the same as the Jets game. Dallas is a 3-point favorite at home. 42.5. This game, I think, I would lean towards the over here. I feel like the Giants did very well against Jacksonville. I feel like they coached conservatively in that situation, and they kept themselves in the game. I was impressed with that. I feel like Saquon Barkley, has got his first game jitters out of the way. We'll see how the Giants can move the ball on the ground against Dallas. They certainly have a better running game than Carolina does. So I expect this game to be a little more open. These teams know each other well. They'll prepare for each other. So I think they'll be able to score a little bit better than they did on their previous opponents. So I do like the over here. Not really sure. I don't really see either of these teams going anywhere this year. It's still early. I could be very wrong. But another competitive game. Should be fun to watch on Sunday night. I lean towards the over here, but I find this to be kind of a pass game for me. So let's move on to the Buffalo Bills. And I may not wear my Bills gear for a while after I'm not superstitious, but they got crushed last week. It was like a worst case scenario. I really didn't watch much of the game, but the team is not prepared. Whether it is personnel or coaching or a combination, it's like an old box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get, and whatever you get is probably not going to taste very good. So they get their rookie stud, Josh Allen, at home. The home opener is always sold out. It's usually nice weather. The crowd will be nuts. He's got the best possible scenario to step in there and give the team a good effort. No matter what happens, they're just going to be happy to see him. The game is the Bills are getting 7.5. I'm not sure I would take 10 at this point, but over 10 I would consider taking the Bills. The Chargers are missing one of their best defensive players in Joey Bosa, and they gave up a lot of points last week to Kansas City. I expected more out of the Chargers, but they can score points as well, which makes me think that they could cover a 14-point spread in this game. So I really don't know what to expect. I certainly don't expect much out of special teams for Buffalo. I really am going to stay away from this. I don't like to take too many games with high point spreads. It has to be a really a lopsided situation for me to consider that in the pro game. The 43, I think, again, this is another lean to the over. You just don't know what you're going to get out of Buffalo. If you get 17 out of Buffalo, 43 looks really good. If you don't, 43 doesn't look good. So another pass for me. The local teams, the lines just don't look appealing to me this week. But there are two what I call marquee matchups in the NFL this week, and I like both of these. So let's look at those right now, and we'll start with Kansas City at Pittsburgh. Now, Kansas City put a big smackdown on the Chargers last week, and they had just an amazing offensive explosion. However, the defense played well enough to win, but it didn't really shut down the Chargers. The Chargers dropped a lot of balls. They just struggled offensively with timing, and it was just like maybe they should have played their starters more in preseason. I don't know. But Kansas City, I think, is in for kind of a much tougher game with Pittsburgh playing at Heinz Field. They got their quarterback who's really only starting his second real game, Pat Mahomes. So I feel like, again, the weather could be impactful here, that when it rains, that field gets really choppy. It's, natural turf. So I feel like Kansas City is going to have a little more trouble scoring points. And on the other side of the ball, you've got Pittsburgh that would prefer to run ball control, ground game, offense, short passes, occasional bomb to Antonio Brown. This game, I feel like, is going to be close. And if there's any impactful weather, this screams take the under. I have it at under 53. I think in some places it's 53.5. I may actually go back for more if it gets to 55, but I love the under in this game. So that's my first official NFL pick this week. Kansas City, Pittsburgh, under 53. And look forward to watching that and seeing how the Pittsburgh defense can match up against this Kansas City offense. And if they do shut them down, I think Pittsburgh is a force to be reckoned with in their division, because if they can take away explosive talent like Kansas City has, that means they're going to keep all their games close. And the other big game of the week is a rematch of last year's AFC title game, as New England Patriots stroll on down to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. And this game is a pick'em. There's no point spread, and the over-under is 45.5. And again, you're talking about having this hurricane come inland and impacting the weather in Jacksonville. I do not think it would be more than some rain. But when it comes to bad weather quarterbacks, there's nobody I'd rather have than Tom Brady. I've seen him throw, 6 touchdowns in a snowstorm. Until he proves otherwise, until Father Time catches up to him, I don't see how you can go away from that. You've got to take, if you're getting the Patriots without giving up any points, I don't see how you can't do that. You've got Jacksonville with Leonard Fournette being their top running back, a game time decision, questionable. And if he's not 100%, that screams to me, go to New England and take the Patriots here. I feel like in bad weather that Bortles will be Bortles, and he will throw a couple of picks. Everybody in the fantasy tout world scream that the Jacksonville receivers ain't nothing. So, that means that, New England should have the edge in this game. New England actually signed a couple receivers this week. Bill Belichick is a master of preparedness, and I expect his new receivers to have a couple of plays scripted for them. So expect them to come in the game at some point and get 1 or 2 snaps and get a look and they'll probably be immediately pulled. But they'll have something scheduled for those guys that they can pull out of their bag, something that the Jacksonville hasn't seen. So New England this weekend. This should be an interesting game. I feel like this could be a lower scoring game, especially if the weather is bad. And moving on to my CFL pick of the week. I know a lot of you don't really care for CFL, but I got to do it. So we've got two of the best teams in the league, the Calgary Stampeders and the Hamilton Tiger Cats, meeting up on Saturday. And Calgary's coming off a loss. They started the season 7-0, and I believe they're 8-2 now. And they've had a couple of tough games, but they are the best offense in the league and one of the better defenses in the league. And Hamilton is, their coaches are June Jones is their head coach, and Jerry Glanville, the old Houston Oilers coach, is their defensive coordinator. They can score points. They're they're the hottest team in the league right now. They've won a couple of games, and they can score points in bunches. They have great special teams. This game is priced at Calgary -1 on the road. Calgary is the better team here. There's no question about it. I do like their chances to win this game. However, I think the play here is over 51. The CFL game is scheduled very different from the way it's timed, the way it's scored. The rules are very different from an NFL game, and 50 points is kind of an average total in the CFL. Teams can put up 80 points without any big deal, and both of these teams can score. I think there's going to be big plays, big turnovers. That means quick scores, more possessions, more points. So my CFL play this week is the over in Calgary-Hamilton, over 51 points. So before we wrap it up, I just want to let you know that I didn't have much time to handle fantasy picks this week or survivor picks this week. And I'm a little discouraged after my survivor fiasco last week, but I think you should shape your survivor picks around the opponents of both Buffalo and Arizona in the next few weeks. These are the teams that are in most disarray, most likely to lose to an opponent. Nothing's guaranteed in life. I see some online people are saying take the team that's the biggest favorite. Not always the right thing to do. The NFL is a parity league, and favorites lose all the time. But pick 2 or 3 games, and the one that you have to think 1 or 2 moves ahead, though, if you really want to win a survivor pool. You got to have luck too. But so survivor, I would say choose. Look at the opponents of both Buffalo and the Arizona Cardinals. I'm definitely going to spend more time on fantasy strategies in future episodes. There's lots of valuable resources online if you're looking for fantasy picks, and I will get back to more of that in the future. So let's just recap really quickly my wagers for the weekend. If you are going to wager at all, so we've got LSU plus 10.5. We've got the Chiefs and the Steelers on Sunday under 53 points. We have the Patriots as a pick'em straight up against Jacksonville, and the Calgary Stampeders and Hamilton Tiger Cats over 51. So that's it for this week. I want to thank you very much for watching again. We've got 29 minutes. We're doing okay. So I'm going to play the outro music and going to let you see our exit slides. And thanks for watching. Come back next week for another episode of Sportsbook Confidential. Let's get some winners. Take care.